There's a relatively famous quote out there, and I'm forgetting who it's from off the top of my head, but it says that specialization is for insects. And of course, it is referencing the idea that humans should be largely generalists, that there is too large of a field of options and things to know and do and understand for specialization to be of particularly use to humans. Now, from time to time in the martial arts, we find kind of a battle between specialization and generalization because on the one side, when you specialize, you can oftentimes push yourself all the way to the elite end of whatever it is that you're doing. On the other side, though, that specialization necessarily takes away from the energy and time and all that that you have from pursuing the broader range of things. And this is one of the things that we see about MMA people all the time, right? Is that MMA guys are very often not showing high level of much of anything in the cage, but at the same time you're not seeing people who were previously high level in their solo thing, Muay Thai, other kickboxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, wrestling. Like sometimes people are very high level in those things and then they come to the cage and they still can't do those high level things. Sometimes it's not even that MMA fighters aren't capable of high level stuff. Sometimes it is that MMA itself makes the high level stuff irrelevant or too hard to be worthwhile to pull off. Yes, occasionally you do see a very high level move, but the fact is that because you have to dabble across the broad range of grappling and striking, and you're doing so in a no gi context, you're doing so in a small gloves, no shoes context, no pads, like it. All of that context changes away from the way that these other specializations do things. And also some of the allowances are broader, like even within the skill set. Like, for instance, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition, there are certain techniques that are not allowed at certain belt levels and whatnot, whereas in MMA, it's fundamentally no holds barred. And that makes a difference on how you apply things. So we come back to that question, right, of specialization versus generalizing. And I will absolutely admit my bias because I myself am just a generalist by nature. I find that generalizing is generally better than specializing. And my general outlook on that is that most people are not built to be elite at anything. I mean, that's just the nature of being elite. The elite are the elite. And most people are definitely not capable of being elite at multiple things. And again, this is not a knock against people. This is the nature of the bell curve. Most people are not outliers. That's how that statistic works. Most people are just not outliers. And the idea that a single specialization is going to carry you through within the general world of things, I mean, unless you are just very, very good at isolating everything so that you only have to deal with your area of specialization, like it's just not going to serve you as well. Now, what do we do in the school system, right? Ignore all the Department of Education things that we could talk about there. We're not going to get into that. But if you look at the way that the school system is set up, it's general education, general education, general education, all the way up until like junior year of college. And then you're supposed to start maybe specializing in your major. But even then, like oftentimes bachelor's majors are pretty general. And then you specialize further going into a master's. And then you specialize even further going into a doctorate, because the entire point of a doctorate is to flesh out like a single line of research to produce a dissertation that will get you that doctorate, right? So it like the college/university system is constantly narrowing you down, but on a base of generalization. And I'm a little cooler with that than I am with the idea of, people going into, like, from their baseline thing, just going into, straight into specialization, which doesn't make as much sense. And one of the reasons that I'm filming this right now is I just saw a clip on, I think it was a YouTube short or something, from the Street Fighter 2 anime from the 90s. And man, as somebody who grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I'm sure a lot of you are that too, as somebody who grew up during that time, one of the things that we kind of learned and believed about martial arts, especially when we're children, is that, like, you kind of go and you pick a style and you're going to become good at that style and you're going to become a great fighter and you're going to use that style to be a fighter, and like every style's specialization is going to do a thing. And I mean, to the point where our entertainment did that, right? Like the movies often were this style versus that style, and the video games were, like, the fighting games were all like this style versus that style, or the kung fu movies are always, this style versus that style. It's always been like that, in the entertainment sphere. And then you get to the early 90s, and what is the first UFC? It is literally designed to be style versus style, to the point where they mandated that you wear the official training or competition gear to compete in. And we can say all what we want about how that deck of cards was stacked and how things changed over the years. That's another ball of wax. But there's part of me, despite having gone through the amateur MMA for a few years and working with guys who are up and coming who want to compete in MMA and Sanda and things like that, things that are inherently mixed or hybridized forms of martial arts, there's still a part of me that kind of wants that Street Fighter 2 thing where it's like, I want every style to be competent fighters. I want every school to be able to be like, these are our best guys and they just absolutely kick ass. And I want to shove them all, in a ring or a cage or a warehouse or whatever, and have them duke it out, not to show what style is the best, but to prove themselves, right? I've talked about that before. I don't think that you can prove anybody is the best. I don't think you can prove an individual is the best. I don't think you can prove a style is the best. I don't think that that you can prove even that categorically an art is the best, because they all have limitations and capabilities and all that, and it's largely about bringing the right toolbox to the job and being competent with that toolbox on the job. Obviously, if the art that you're studying is missing certain tools, you're not going to be able to do the job that requires those tools. That's just a reality of it. But proving the best is kind of not possible, because on any given day, anybody can be on the top of the game relative to the competition, and it's always relative to the competition. It's not relevant to, or relative to history. It's not relative to the future. It is relative to the group of people who are competing at that event at that time. And we've seen this over and over and over again. You will see people who have multiple matchups, and that matchup only goes one way, in one person's favor each time, right? In the same person's favor each time. And then that person gets beaten. And then somebody comes in behind them and then beats the person who was beaten. And you almost get this rock, paper, scissors kind of thing of paper's never beating scissors. But because paper beat rock and rock beat scissors, it looks like that it comes back around, right? We saw this with the whole Ronda Rousey Miesha Tate thing, right? Tate never could beat Rousey. Rousey gets beaten by home. Tate beats home, and you go, oh, did she get better? No, it was a better matchup for her. There's no way to say that because Misha Tate beat Holly Holm that she could have then beaten Ronda Rousey. Um, because the way that two people's fight IQs match up is pretty specific. Um, so like you could be really great against somebody and you could be really crap against somebody, and that doesn't necessarily say anything about you overall. It really just is a matchup of how like the tactics and the psychology and the toolboxes all work. So, again, this is why I really like a generalist approach, because I want to see people be able to kind of cover their weaknesses with other skills, right? I want to see people have that breadth of ability that allows them to cover over for deficits rather than specialize so much that they have to rely on one thing, right? It's a dependency kind of issue. And I still feel a little bit lied to by the 80s and 90s, and I guess the 70s before I was born. I guess I feel a little lied to by that because I still want everybody to be like, I learned how to fight in my school, and you learned how to fight in your school, and let's match up and prove ourselves. And like I kind of wish it was still that, but at this point, right, you don't get the karate guy versus the Hungar guy versus the Muay Thai guy versus the Silat guy. You get the Muay Thai and BJJ guy versus the other Muay Thai and BJJ guy, right? You get people following trends, and all of a sudden everybody's kind of doing the same thing, right? And when everybody does the same thing in the general sense of it, you get a very sameness, which then also creates kind of a feedback loop of certain things work because everybody's fighting the same. But then when somebody comes in and flips that on its head, well, all of a sudden those things don't necessarily work that well anymore because, hey, this guy that's doing something else did something else and it worked. And did it work because it was better, or did it work because it was different and they weren't expecting it, right? That's the chaos of it. So again, I think generalization is a little bit better than following trends and hyper specialization and all that. I think I'm kind of done with that here because I can feel myself starting to ramble. But it's just something to chew on, something to think about. Is whatever your field is, right? Whether it's combat sports or being some kind of officer, operator out in the real world, or something in between, you do have to train specific for your specific domain, obviously, and that's for your context and consequences, right? Or conditions and consequences, right? Because that's what I've basically shorthanded context as, is conditions and consequences. You need to have if you're doing a job, right, or if you're doing a competition, you do need to have some kind of specialization towards that thing. But that doesn't mean that has to be everything all the time. So, it's good to mix it up from time to time. It's good to take on different challenges. It's good to change things up, because maybe you'll be that guy that flips the script on its head and changes the trend. And I think that's a good thing. And the more we have people trend changing rather than trend chasing, I think is probably going to be better overall for all of us. Because again, I don't think you're ever going to prove who's the best or what style is the best or anything like that. At some point, we're all trying to get to the same place of, can I be competent enough to win a fight, to win my conflict, more often than I lose my conflict, right? Some people truly want to be the best at that, which again, I don't think is possible. But, some people can get very good to elite levels. And if that's your goal, that's fine. But for the most of us, getting to the point where you're better than a 50%er, where you're getting better than a 75%er, where you are getting up there to the point where you can be pretty confident that you have a better than average chance, like a significantly better than average chance, one worth betting on. That's kind of where most of us want to get. And generalization is going to get you there a lot quicker than specialization is. Specialization is just too narrow, right? You don't build the pyramid on the point. You build the pyramid at the base. So, yeah, so I'm going to cut off there, and I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Check us out on our other socials, and please head over to blacksunboxing.com to get a little more info, including how to contact us. Furthermore, if you are in the Phoenix area, please feel free to stop in, say hi, join in for a class, whatever. Also, if you ever see us cite sources or just for additional content, please check out our Substack. That is where we put all of the sources we use in our videos and is a major part of this. Plus, it serves as a membership platform for long distance learning and for people who would like to support us but aren't local. We would greatly appreciate it if you signed up. Even just the free membership helps us out a lot. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Good journey.